Actually, one of the topics I wanted to talk about today was Ghibli, because I think
also
the only
hate Ghibli?
movie I saw.
Yep.
No, I love Ghibli, but I only actually saw most of them last year for the first time.
Really?
Because I did have a little bit of a trauma, I think, when I was like 5 or 6 years old.
Where did the Ghibli touch you?
So I was at my grandparents' house, and my grandparents are like they had a cool house in retrospect, but as a kid it was like very like old school, kind of like a lot of like antiques and stuff like that, very dark, like thick curtains. And so my grandparents were just like smoking and watching TV, and I was watching TV in like their bedroom. So I was just lying on the floor. It was really dark, and my grandma just put on Spirited Away. Yes.
How old are you?
And me as a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
5 or 6. Yeah.
That could get quite terrifying, yeah.
Yeah.
I was traumatized by Ghibli, I think, for like the longest time, especially with like the no face and everything like that, and like, you know, the mouth opening up. So that was like very vivid in my childhood memory. And so only last year did I actually come around and was like, no, okay, I do want to give like all the Ghiblis a shot again, and I really, really enjoyed them. Did you guys watch them as kids, or?
Not as a kid, because they weren't really a thing when I was a kid. They more started trickling out when I was a teenager. But yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm pretty sure Howl's Moving Castle was the first Ghibli film I saw. Loved it. Immediately checked out some other ones. Some I loved, some depressed the crap out of me, like Grave of the Fireflies. I wasn't quite prepared going into that when I was a teenager.
They're all surprisingly dark, I feel, or like at least have a very dark undertone.
Yeah, or like dark subtleties. Like you said in Spirited Away, I'm pretty sure that it takes place, in like a metaphorical brothel, like bathhouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a similar story of Spirited Away traumatizing me because I watched at a similar age, like 5 or 6. This is just the podcast of Sophie's traumas. This is just, we're branding this episode
Actually,
as Sophie's
the blue
therapist.
banana is just...
It's the...
Whoever holds the blue banana gets to share one trauma. It's the
Hi,
therapy's
my name
banana.
is Liam, and here is how I was traumatized.
The scariest part for me was the parents, I think, that turned into pigs, if I remember
Yes.
correctly. So it goes back to being a fresh migrant kid, not knowing much English when I was in kindergarten. And like literally when I moved to Australia, the only words I knew were yes, no, and maybe. And because of that, I didn't have a lot of friends in kindergarten.
It's because when people asked you, you kept saying no.
Exactly. I was like, just maybe.
You were like,
you want to be
maybe.
friends? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe no.
It's so Australian as well. Yeah, nah.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah, nah.
What you want to hear is nah, yeah.
Well, I was obviously giving them the wrong answers because I definitely did not have a lot of friends. To the point that the scariest nightmare for me, like a recurring nightmare when I was a child, was I'd be at school assembly and the bullies at my school would get up onto the stage, pass around some sort of special cream, and the whole school would turn into pigs and chase me.
Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing at your trauma, but the
funny.
imagery is great.
That does sound like a horror thing. That sounds a bit like a Jujutsu Kaisen episode or something.
It does,
It
doesn't
does.
it? Yeah.
It's a great idea, actually.
That also turned really dark. The mobbing arc, basically.
Jujutsu Kaisen, I feel like, was always pretty dark.
Yeah,
but
quite
it
dark.
did
Yeah.
amp things up. It continues to amp things up. Just
I'm
perpetually.
very surprised. Yeah, I feel like Shonen Jump as a magazine overall has like a real double standards in certain things, because they're like, oh, we can't do this because we're a magazine for young boys. But then they also air stuff where I'm like, well, this should probably be 18 plus, because like you have people slicing other people in half.
At
Okay.
times, Jujutsu Kaisen is arguably a seinen series, I think.
I think recently it definitely has been only seinen, I would argue.
Also, isn't Attack on Titan technically a shonen series? Or am I just making that up?
Yeah.
It is,
No,
I
I
think.
think
I'm pretty
technically
sure
it
it
is.
is.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so shonen. It's definitely for the 13-year-olds.
Yeah, Aaron's gonna be the Titan King.
I do think One Piece, I know that Oda wants to keep it as shonen-y as possible, but like, given all the like relatively dark themes in the story, if you wanted to go Jujutsu Kaisen, you could probably really easily do it.
Yeah, definitely.
sure.
Well, he purposely has dark histories that he doesn't put into the story, like the whole
Yeah.
Doflamingo Viola relationship, which is canon. He just doesn't like put it in there,
Elaborate.
but it's
on
there in his
Yeah.
mind. They have an intimate relationship, or they had an intimate relationship. It is implied.
Very consensual.
I think it was consensual, but then again, like, they fucked. That's what happened. For some reason, at some stage, after Doflamingo took over the country, they fucked.
In a way, I never want this to happen, but in another way, I also definitely want this to happen. Like, how funny would it be if Eiichiro Oda just pulled a complete J.K. Rowling, and after One Piece end, he's just like, oh yeah, Sanji and Zoro were totally gay. I just didn't want to mention it, but they were totally gay. And then she's like, "Oh yeah, and by the way, like they were all pooping, like on board the deck.
all
They were just
pirate
pooping in the
shitting
water.
clothes. Yeah, yeah.
They're all pirates, actually. And they just flush it out."
That's so
That'd
funny
be
because
really
one
funny.
of the most recent comments that I got on a Zoro and Sanji skit that I did was, it's not like who's better, Zoro or Sanji. It's a question of who's on top.
Zoro, obviously.
I feel like I'm gonna write that down. Actually, I feel like that might be a fucking hilarious video. What if
Who's on
Eiichiro
top?
Oda was J.K. Rowling?
Right. I thought this was going to be an in-depth Zoro Sanji examination.
Oh
Like
yes.
power scaling, but with dicks.
I mean that is. I think we talked about this the other day. Like I'm not sure about you. So
Zoro
like,
could jerk so much harder than Sanji. Just think of all the training he does. But Sanji has the dexterity because he's a chef and he knows how to handle tools.
Do you want the banana? Do you want to share? Do you want to share something with us?
It's thought about this.